I believe that I have possibly discovered the formula for time travel. Now, one day I had sort of read a book about time travel, and it inspired me to do a bunch of research and kind of see if I could figure out how it would be theoretically possible to time travel. And I know it sounds crazy and far-fetched, but I did a lot of research at the library and spent many hours on this. And what I found was quite interesting. Now, we know that in the universe there are four fundamental forces. Okay, the gravitational force, electromagnetic force, weak force, and strong force. Okay, and these forces are separate individual entities. Well, one thing I found very interesting is how similar the electromagnetic force and gravitational force are, and that they follow a lot of the same trends and patterns, such as the inverse square law. And in fact, the only difference that people have proposed, really the main difference between the electromagnetic force and gravitational force, is the fact that gravity pulls where the electromagnetic force pulls and pushes and repels. And that's the biggest difference that people could present as to why these are two separate fundamental forces of nature, right? But what if the electromagnetic force and the gravitational force were one and the same? That gravity is essentially electromagnetism, okay? And that if we could control electromagnetism, then we can control gravity. And one interesting thing I noted is that if you ever take some magnets, okay, and you take magnets and you take the same side magnetic poles and you push them towards each other, what happens to one of the magnets? It moves and it starts spinning around, right? And I believe this is how the planets function, that they are giant magnets, electromagnets, and that they produce a magnetic field that pushes the sun creates this giant electromagnetic field, right, that pushes the planets in revolution around it. And then it also causes these planets to spin in their own revolutions, right? And that the sun, if you look at it, the core, and you look at the core of planets, right, they consist of iron and hot liquid metal. And sort of these planets are giant electromagnets, you know, because how we create an electromagnet is we take a coil, and inside that coil we put in like iron, and we shoot electricity through this coil, and that creates a magnet and a magnetic field. And essentially the planets work the same way, I believe, that they are these giant electromagnets, and they create this huge electromagnetic field. And if you look at the center of the planets and the sun, right, they consist of iron, and you have this moving iron, and they almost act like a generator where they produce electricity and they amplify their magnetic field. And I think the sun creates this magnetic field that moves the planets in revolution around the sun, right? And that these planets create their own magnetic field, which repels sort of the magnetic field of the sun and keeps them from getting pulled into the sun, and also aids in their revolutions around the sun and causes them to spin, right? And if you look at the Philadelphia experiment, which was supposedly this experiment that happened in the early 1900s, where the ship, the USS Philadelphia, conducted this experiment where it took giant coils and wrapped them around a ship. And now this is alleged. You know, people said that they've seen this and they witnessed it, and they've seen this ship with coils around it, and that some people believe that Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla were involved with this, and that the ship created a giant electromagnetic field, and it transported from one part of the bay to another part of the bay and then returned. But when it returned, some of the sailors on the ship were kind of intermingled between some of the metal, and some of them had went insane, and that it was an experiment that had went wrong. But to me, that fits into the whole idea that maybe the gravitational force is the electromagnetic force, and that gravity is essentially magnetism, and that if we can control the electromagnetic field, then we can control gravity. And if you're familiar with Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, gravity pulls on time and space and creates how we experience time and space in different areas of the universe, right? Based on the gravitational pull. So if we could control the electromagnetic field, which is gravity, and sort of either go anti-gravity or create a stronger gravitational pull, we could pull time and space around us, or actually slow down time and space to where we start going backwards in time. And it would be very complicated and very hard, because you would have to be able to know exactly the right formula to control how much of the electromagnetic field, or how strong of electromagnetic field you would need, and how you would actually create anti-gravity, or how much you would pull on gravity to move you forward or backwards through time. And essentially, it could be very dangerous, and it would take a lot of planning and a lot of safe measures. But I think that this initially is the way to understanding time travel. Now,